Guys, we're gonna get started. Just quick announcement. I know Don talked about we had an Instagram class a couple weeks ago. Well, the club here has an Instagram account. So you guys should all, if you have Instagram, if you're on it, you should add them, follow Instagram. It is Front Range Woodturners. Just front underscore range underscore Woodturners, and you'll find it. All right, let's get going with the night. So tonight we have a great demonstration of some side tables. So I don't know if you didn't know that you could also incorporate wood turning into furniture design, not just for bowls and pens and vases and things like that. But tonight, Michael Roper, just kidding. Roper is going to be doing the demo this evening. He's got a very long background of woodworking and furniture design and wood turning. He works at a lumber mill. He's been doing this for a really long time and has been educating people at Red Rocks. Oh, sorry. Yeah, okay, thanks. All right, so like I said, we've got side tables tonight. It looks like a really long, big demonstration. And I think, I don't know, I'll let you kind of get on, get going. So I'm very happy to introduce Roper here to do our demonstration tonight for our club. So thank you for joining us.
Did. It's on. There we go. All right. All right. How's it going, everybody? Thank you very much for coming out. Just glad that we've got this evening and not Saturday evening when nobody would have been going anywhere. So it's great seeing you guys. I'm Roper. For those of you guys who don't know me, I'm Roper. Been a member here for a little bit. I have been in woodworking pretty much all my life in different forms. As Jessica was saying, I have done turning and furniture and cabinet making. I currently work at a sawmill with side jobs and cabinet making. I'm doing all sorts of woodworking. So I thought that this would be a fun project for you guys to see. It incorporates both side grain turning and spindle turning, which is kind of a little bit different. So we're going to go over some techniques for those two things. Plus, who doesn't need more furniture in their home? Everybody could use a little side table. So if you guys have any questions while I'm turning, please don't raise your hand, just scream them out or just get my attention or something. If I'm going too quickly or if you missed something, like I said, just stop me so that I can go back over it again, okay? So what I've got over here is, this was my first one that I made. Like a lot of you guys, you bring something in the house and your loved one sees it, and that's as far as it goes. So this one now has a permanent home in my living room, okay? I've made a couple other ones since. I kind of got this one turned over the weekend just so that you guys could see the parts, okay? So this one has not been glued in. So this one can be handed around so we can see what's going on. So generally with my process, I start with the spindle and then work towards the top and the base, okay? Because then that way I can play with my proportions and kind of get things the way that I want them to fit, okay? So the first thing we're gonna do is, I've got a blank on the lathe. First thing I'm gonna do is we're gonna spin these two tenons, get them down to 2 inches, 1 inch tall, okay? Both the top and the bottom have already been pre-drilled, okay? Even the blanks that I have here. I didn't have enough time to do all of this for the demo, but I wanted to go over some of it. I use a drill press to be able to get these holes accurate and straight, okay? I tried doing it by hand. I tried doing it with one of the Woodcraft handheld presses. I don't recommend doing either of those. Of all of the parts of making a project like this, the joinery is probably the most critical, okay? If this hole is off to one side, it gets really hard to align it back up after, okay? So by using a drill press makes it a lot easier to get these straight, okay? So you could drill them on the lathe. I find that doing it on the drill press is a little bit quicker. Also, to do them on the lathe, you would either need to have a faceplate or you would need to put a tenon on there on the face. These weigh a little bit more than I would trust double stick tape. Not to say that you couldn't. Double stick tape is great. I do use it for pendants and things like that. I don't know that I would trust any double stick tape to something this size. Most of these blanks, got a couple of them right here. You know, they weigh a few pounds. You don't really want one of these to come loose on you if you don't have to deal with that. Okay. So the one thing that you will hear me say here also is turn safe. Okay. I've got my face shield up here that I wear all the time when I turn. Also kind of watch your speeds. All right. When I'm in my own studio, yeah, I probably turn a little faster than I should, but time is money when this is what you do for a living. For most of you guys, this is a recreation or hobby. So I want you guys to have fun and be safe while you do this. Okay. So I'm going to be going a little bit slower so you guys can see what I'm doing. But work at a speed that you're comfortable with. Okay. Or that your machine is comfortable with. Okay. The Powermatic here, lovely machine. It's great. I own one of these also, but I also own a Vicmar, significantly heavier. I can put pieces of wood on it and spin it just a little bit faster and be safe because I know I'm not going to get a lot of wobble and vibration. So you guys know your machine, you know your skills. Don't try to exceed that and get yourself in trouble. This is what I always kind of say in the beginning. That being said, let's go get in trouble. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is a little bit of layout here, okay? I'm going to take my ruler. I've got it set at 1 inch, okay? I'm going to put a 1 inch line here on this side. This blank is about 5.5 inches. Now, as I stated earlier, since I work at a log yard, I'm a little spoiled in the material that I can get. I cut up pretty much anything I want, and I have it available for both myself and you guys if you need it. Now, I know that finding stock this size isn't always that easy, okay? And the first couple that I did, I actually did glue ups, okay? Which is fine, unless you're like me where you don't want to look at that glue line. But just know your timber, know what you're working with, okay? Know that if you are going to glue a piece up, to make sure you have a really good glue joint, okay? Make sure that that glue has had plenty of time to harden before you put it on the lathe, okay? Because nothing is worse than not letting it sit long enough and having that glue joint separate on, okay? But this blank is about 5.5 inches in diameter, 18 inches long. I found that when I've been making these tables for myself and clients, anywhere in that kind of 19 to 22, 23 inches seems to be the most appealing for people. I have a few prototypes going for plant stands. They're a little higher. They're about 30 inches tall. They make a nice plant stand. I don't know exactly how they would be as a table, but I'll let you know after I get the first one together and we see how long it takes my son to knock it over. So this is silver maple, local silver maple. All right, so we got some layout lines here. So first tool that I'm going to use is my beating and parting tool. This is a 3/8 inch tool. It's just a big parting tool is all that it is, okay? I like it for taking things down quickly, especially on spindle work, okay? This tool can be used in 2 ways, okay? We can lay it flat and use it as a negative rake scraper, or we can drop this handle down, present the bevel, and we can make a peeling cut, okay? It's 2 completely different tools depending on how you use this. You're going to see, I'm going to drop this handle down. We're going to get really nice peel shavings that are going to come off. As I get closer to my diameter that I want on this tenon, I'm going to pick the handle up, and I'm actually just going to use the burr on the end, just so that I can clean up that tenon and get it down to the proper diameter that I need to get it to fit into my top of my base. This is dry. I would not do this project out of wet wood, only because the glue isn't going to adhere as well with it being wet wood. And then as it dries and shrinks, your mortise and tenon aren't going to fit together well. So this is definitely a project that I would do with dry material, or if you have wet material, turn it rough shape and then let it dry and then finish it. But anytime you're going to be gluing materials together, you want to make sure that it's as dry as you can have. All right. So always make sure that your tool rest clears before you turn on the machine. Who hasn't done that? Oh yeah, there's a lot of hands not going up, but I know. We've all done it. It makes that horrible screeching noise and you're reaching for that off button. Just always make sure everything clears, okay? And as I said, turn it safe speed for you. Now, I noticed when I came in here earlier, so you look at that, okay? That's about 700 RPMs. Because we're on a platform, we're getting some wobble out of this. Okay, you have two options. You either turn it down or you go up past the wobble, okay? I'm going to take this up to about 1,000, which was where I found that the wobble stopped, okay? So these are things that you kind of want to think about when you're doing a project and how your machine reacts, okay? You can either turn the speed down to get rid of the wobble or go past it, but just be safe when you're doing it. So we're going to take some of this off, start peeling away here. As I said earlier, I apologize to the cleanup crew now. So as you can see, when I'm making this cut, all that I'm doing is resting the bevel, slightly picking the handle up, making sure that I always keep this bevel engaged, okay? If the bevel comes off of the cut, that's when that tool starts bouncing around on you. You feel like you don't have control of it. That bevel needs to be riding on that cut so that you get the nice smooth feel out of the tool. All right, so I'm gonna have to adjust here real quick. Okay, we always want to try and keep our tool rest as close to the work as we can. All right. This one's not going to let me get in here though. Sorry, I should have brought my third tool rest. Man, is it smaller than this one though? Let's see what we got. I thought this one would be enough to get in there. See, I didn't even make it 35 minutes. Was it 21? Yeah, let's see this little guy. Thank you. Ah, there we go. Thank you, Larry. Just like you knew I was going to need it. No. How much more? Can we get it? All right. So we're going to take this down to 2 inches. All right. To do that, we're going to use a set of calipers here. How many of you guys have a set of these calipers? Yeah, I want to see all these hands. Do you guys have the ends rounded off of it? Okay, so that was the first thing I was going to say is the first time you get these and they have that sharp point on there and you try to drop it over a piece of spinning wood, boom, and it goes flying out of your hands and you do this and then you wonder why, okay? Because these weren't really designed to be put on a piece of spinning wood with those sharp points, okay? So you got to take it to your grinder or to a piece of sandpaper and round those over and make it safe so that as I come down to 2 inches, these calipers are going to fall over the wood safely. They're not going to bind in there and get thrown out of your hand.
All right. All right, now we're gonna use it as a scraper here real quick. Take that down to 2 inches, then check it. All right. So that's how it's done.
So in my process, the first thing I do is cut both of these tenons, so then I can lay out for where I want my feature to be.
Any questions so far? You guys just like watching the shavings like I do? Come.
End of here, it will be flat once I true it up. But I don't do that with the beating and parting tool. I'm actually going to come in with my spindle gouge so that I can get a nice cut coming across here. But I will flatten that up.
Free shavings if anybody's got a hamster. Speaking of, I was always told that I should have a joke while I'm demonstrating. And I've never really been one to have jokes or anything like that. But my little guy, who's 7 years old, came up to me the other day and said, "Dad, I got a joke for you." I said, "Okay." He said, "Why are a cigarette and a hamster alike?" And I kind of looked at him and I was like, "What do you mean? Like, how are a cigarette and a hamster alike?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "Neither one of them are dangerous until you put it in your mouth and you light it on fire."
Yeah, I did the same thing. I had to walk away and chuckle in the corner. I was like, I don't know where you heard that, but that was perfect. So I was going to use that this evening.
All right. What?
Worry about that. Yeah. I mean, we all know the fruit don't fall far from the tree, so fruit tree. If only we could get some more fruit woods here. All right, so right now we got our tenons kind of rough set. Now the next thing I'm going to do is going to do my layout for where I'm going to put my feature once I find my tape measure. Now this is usually when we use the golden rule, or as close to it as we can. Okay, I like to do these 1/3, 2/3. Okay. Not only is it more visually appealing, because we all know that that kind of fits everywhere into nature, but we want to have more weight down here on the bottom. Okay, we want to make this kind of stable, or as stable as we can. The first ones I was doing had the bigger bottom. I've done a few with this smaller bottom that also seem very stable. So it's kind of woodworker's choice as to what sizes you want to do these at. The tops I've been doing anywhere between 12 and 14 inches in diameter. The bottoms have been anywhere between 8 and 10. Okay. But just kind of think about how tall you're going to have your table or how big you want to have the top. Okay. Obviously, as things get bigger, we need to have a bigger base and have them more stable. But let's find where our middle is here, or where our third is. So we're at 15. Oh, look at that. Almost like I made some easy math there. I made easy math there. Yes. We've been working on lots of math. Not as much as I would like him to. It's another one of those things where, you don't want to force your kid to do it because then they hate it. So he comes down in my shop with me when he wants to, and it's always available. That's one of the nice things about having the shop at home. But the other thing is that I have to make sure that I unplug every tool there because I never know when he might just wander down there by himself. So, yeah. All right, so this is where we're going to put our feature, okay? We also need to now determine what diameter we want to make our top and or our bottom, okay? On the one that's still in pieces, that has a 3-inch diameter top. The other one on the other side has a 4-inch diameter top. So those seem to be the sizes that I've gotten the best reaction for. The bigger one I did was a little clunky, didn't fit right. I tried one that was much smaller, and what happened was that I didn't have enough shoulder here when I put the top onto it, and the piece cracked. Okay, so just remember that when you're going to be putting the top onto here, you want to have enough shoulder here to support it, and enough so that you can actually get some glue on it too. Okay, so I have found that about a 1/2 inch shoulder is about the minimum that works here. I was waiting for them to get started. See, when this is your club, you're not surprised by it. So, I've been outside before. I think I'm okay there. All right, so we're going to reset this to about 3.5 inches for this one, just so we can move this along. Any questions so far? I have not yet, but I'm always kind of working with designs and trying new things, but I have not tried that one yet.
All right. Yeah, this maple's a little dry.
Just before I go much further on this, I should talk about this too. I don't know if you guys can see the way that I'm holding the tool while I have the calipers on the wood, okay? We all know we want to have right hand back driving, left hand is pushing down onto the tool rest, okay? That's kind of hard to do when we're trying to use a set of calipers, okay? So what I was taught and the way that I do it is that right hand goes right up here by the ferrule, okay? Index finger comes right down the tool, okay? That way, I know that my finger's pointing right where I want this to be. I can control the tool handle with both my wrist and my arm if I need to support the cut, okay? You'll also see that I don't have the gouge out here kind of flopping around. I tuck it in up against my body, okay? This gives me support to have this gouge up against my body. It's much easier for me to control it. I can actually use my hip if I need to move it. But having that extra point down there gives me more stability while I'm using this tool. Okay, so just think about that when you're making this cut and you're holding calipers. Don't try to hold it back here. Don't try to hold it like this. It's going to wobble around on you. Get that hand right up on the ferrule, index finger pointing so that your body knows where that tool is pointing. This one I believe is about 30 degrees on this.
All right. So now we're going to take a thin parting tool. We're going to come in. We're just going to relieve a little bit of this line before I start getting material out of the way.
The only reason I do that is because as I start shaping, I won't know where my line is. Okay, so I'm going to constantly leave this parting tool line as my center until I bring those two coves together, or those two beads together. Okay. Now, get rid of a little more material here. Is it how many chips I'm going to throw around? Oh,
Work in a sawmill, what's it gonna cost for you, for someone to come to you and buy the material to buy that, to make one of those, like
The bo-
15, 18-inch diameter top and bottom, 6-inch, 20-inch long? What are we talking?
you talking general public or to you guys?
Whatever.
For you guys, I sell the blanks top and bottom, these blanks for 15 bucks a piece. The 6x6 for 15, 20 bucks, depending on how tall it is. Now, when people come in that aren't Front Range Woodturner members, obviously they get regular rate. But I'll always take care of you guys like I do the guys at the college. It's probably the reason that I can't make any money. No, I'm in a very fortunate position that the gentleman I work for is a great guy who has a wonderful tree removal business. So our overhead isn't as much as it is for some other people. We take the trees down there, we see it from the beginning to end. The trees get taken down, they come to the log yard. I analyze them, I see whether it's anything usable that's in there. If not, it goes in the firewood pile and he makes money off of selling firewood, or I slab it, or I turn it into turning stock and it gets sold that way. So, we're in a fortunate position where I can help you guys out as much as I can. And my boss knows that. We've come to an agreement where, when students or when Front Range Woodturner guys show up, you guys are my family, always have been, and that's why I will always take care of you guys. Just a little bit though, like. I wouldn't have it any other way. No. Unfortunately, we do not. So everything that comes out of our place is all air dried. That's why when you guys call sometimes, products hit or miss. We don't buy material. Everything that we use is taken down here on the Front Range, and everything is air dried. We don't have a kiln. I don't have the room for one or the budget for one. So I do what I can with what I have. So.
All right, let's take this down a little more. And I need the bigger gouge.
So this is another thing that I was going to talk about tonight. Bull gouge, one of my favorite tools. Also works really well on spindle turning, which a lot of guys or a lot of people don't really understand. It's going to be much easier for me to shape this because of its size with a 1/2-inch bull gouge than it ever will be with the spindle gouge. I'll use the spindle gouge a little bit to kind of refine my shape, but to really get rid of material, the bull gouge is a phenomenal tool.
Now, even though I'm using a bowl gouge here, I still have to remember and use my spindle rules, okay? I always have to make sure that I'm cutting from a larger diameter down to a smaller diameter. Yeah, that's some dry wood. Sorry, guys. Hmm. You guys having fun yet?
I use every tool and handle that I can find. Now, like many of you, I have a lot of different tools from different manufacturers. I find good things and bad things about every one of them. But I will always go for one of my Trent Bosch handles for any tool that I can. I have several of them. Trent's a wonderful individual. His handles and his gouges are phenomenal. And I was going to talk about this a little bit too after Marty brought it up. Please, please, please apply for a Pete Holtis educational grant. It was one of the best things that I ever did and one of the best things that ever happened to my woodworking career. I was one of the first recipients of the Pete Holtis. I took a class with Trent Bosch, and ever since then, I just went down the rabbit hole of wood turning. So please sign up for it. I mean, all of my pressure is going down into the tool rest. I'm basically just floating the bevel of the tool across the cut. No. So you'll hear people and you'll hear a lot of instructors tell you to rub the bevel, which is kind of a good advice in the beginning, but really it's you just want to kind of float that tool across where you want to make the cut. All of my pressure is coming down into the tool rest, and with my left hand, and with my right hand, all the pressure is actually up against my body. Because as you'll see, well, it was a little easier on that side, but a little bit here, you'll see that I do the lathe dance. I'm constantly shifting my hips back and forth. That's really what's driving the tool in the direction that I want it to go. I'm not a big person. If I don't use the tools the simplest way that I can, I struggle with it. Just like with hand hollowing or anything like that. Like if I try to overreach the tool, I'm not the same size as Bear. I can't hold a tool down like he can. I've seen that gentleman do things with tools that I didn't think were possible, and I know that aren't possible for me. So I have to know my limitations and kind of know ways to finesse the tool to get it to do what I want. And those two techniques can really help you, is by knowing that having the tool anchored onto the tool rest and that your pressure with your left hand is going down into the tool rest. And by having your right hand at the end of the tool and having it up against your hip, up against your belt line right there, is going to give you the most control of the tool. Yep. Even when I swap hands like this and I start turning, this one comes into here, left hand, or now will be my right hand pushing down into the tool rest. Yeah. Because one of the things you always kind of want to watch out for, and this is another thing that beginners have a tendency to want to do, is they want to let their front hand help. The front hand is just there for weight. It's just pushing the gouge down onto the tool rest. The back hand is doing all the driving. That's doing all of your shaping. If you start getting the left hand involved in pulling the tool, what happens is you actually risk pulling the bevel off of the cut. And that's when people get catches and it starts doing weird things, is because they're pulling more with that left hand and not having it just do its job of keeping the tool down onto the tool rest. Yeah. See now, here we go.
I'll swap up. And now we'll do a peeling cut. And I'll just shift my body as I make this cut. So all my right hand is doing is pushing down into the tool rest. My left hand has the tool up against my body. And my body shifts. And I can peel that material away.
You guys ever watch Happy Gilmore? It's all in the hips. That was my Carl Weathers. There you go. All right, Chubbs. So when you get a good peeling cut, those are the kind of shavings that you can get. It's all in the hips. All right, let me finish this one up and then we'll get the
Top and bottom on here. Yes, you can.
well, some people can. Come on, we all got that one nemesis tool and we all know it's the skew, so they're, so the question was the differences in tool steel. And honestly, I've used a lot of different steel. I've used M2, I've used M42, I've used Cryo, I've used the Thompson tools. And honestly, I haven't found one that actually is superior to another. I have found some that you do need to sharpen a little bit more because the edge just wears off a little bit faster. As we've all known, if you've ever bought a Harbor Freight set of tools, how Chinese steel just doesn't, hold its edge. But you have to remember that, a lot of Woodturners, or when Woodturners started out, it was all high carbon steel. So there was a lot of sharpening that was going on there, you know, because high carbon steel gets warm, it bends over quickly, it doesn't hold an edge as long as you would like it to. I think that, you know, as long as you are getting a gouge from a quality company like a Thompson, Sorby, D-Way, things like that, that all use well-made steel, that unless you're super focused or, you know, really sensitive, I can't really tell the difference, you know, in the steel while I'm cutting. The only way that I can tell is how long I can get a tool to last. This particular bowl gouge is from Robust, and I didn't really know much about their tools. I bought one because I wanted to try it. I don't see much difference in it than any other one. You know, as long as you get a nice piece of high-speed steel, they all, at least to me personally, seem to be about the same. I'm sure that if you ask that question in here, you're going to get 15 different answers from 12 different people. So sorry, what was that? Up here, I've got a 3.5. Here, I'm going to leave it big for now until, you know, I didn't even check that. I'm just kind of eyeballing it to see what looks good. Yeah, about that much. No, that's, you know, it on the features and on the center, I don't really measure it as much because it doesn't seem to be as critical. You know, the critical parts are where the mortise and tenon are coming in. I only did this one at 3.5 because I didn't want to remove too much material so we could get going. And I also wanted to leave a little bit bigger shoulder. But no, I didn't even check the diameter of that. Sorry, where? On this one? The question was, what grind am I running on my tools? I use a jig for my bowl gouges. Everything else I freehand. And I've got one of these nice spiffy red woodcut jigs that I use. I'm a big fan of the 55-degree Irish grind. It seems to be the most versatile that I've been able to find. I can cut with it, I can shear scrape, or I can scrape with it. So there's a lot of different things that can be done with this particular 55-degree grind. Plus, I'm lazy. I don't want to have to grab extra tools if I don't have to. I know that there are particular grinds that remove material better or quicker, but I've never had a problem with this one. And like I said, if I can do 2 or 3 different operations with one tool, that's what I would rather do. So the Irish grind is the swept back wing that's flat up top. So the one thing you want to watch out for in a bowl gouge is that you don't have the crown on the top of your bowl gouge. Okay, so a lot of times when I do a lesson with someone and they come over and they're like, I can't get this tool to work right. It's generally because they've ground the tip away and it's come down. And what it does is it, here, we'll draw it. Yeah, come on. So when I cut mine, it's a nice flat top like that. I relieve the bottom also. I get a hollow grind down here, so I've got a shorter bevel, okay? What happens is you keep grinding in, all of a sudden this wing does this, and it has a hump in the middle. And what happens is as you're turning with it, you're grinding or you're cutting, it's fine. All of a sudden that hump in the wing is what grabs into the bowl, and it'll flip the tool over on you. And you're like, well, wait a minute, I just sharpened that. And you take it back to the grinder and you sharpen it again. But what's happening is you're removing more material off the nose than you are off the wings, okay? So whenever I sharpen a bowl gouge, I sharpen the wings to where I need it to be. Then I blend through the nose. I take one pass across, okay? because I don't want to be removing a bunch of material off that nose. The more that I remove material off the nose, the more of that crown happens on your gouge. So when you go home, just take a look at it. Look at it and be like, is that wing flat across, or does it have that little hump or that little crown on the top of it? And you'll see, what? Or does it have a bird beak where you're spending too much time on the wing and grinding that away, and then all of a sudden, now you've got this happening, which is almost even scarier, because every time you go to enter into a cut with that bird beak, it's going to pull the tool down every time on you, you know? And these are the things, the little things that you learn over time. What? Bring it up here.
No, no, not his fault.
So yeah, these are the two problems that you have to watch out for when grinding your bowl gouges. And it just takes, you know, and once again, going kind of back to steel, this is when I always recommend that people buy something from Harbor Freight, because if you want to learn to sharpen a tool, learn to sharpen a cheap tool. Don't buy a really expensive Sorby or Ellsworth or something like that. Ellsworth gouge was the first one I bought. I was terrified to sharpen it. The first time I brought it into Bruce and asked him what was wrong with it, he said, "Rope, you haven't sharpened it." I said, "Well, I'm afraid I paid $150 for this thing and I don't want to grind it away, you know?" But that is one of the key things in wood turning, is knowing how to keep your tool where it's going to act the best or where it's going to cut the best for you. And that takes a long time of standing in front of the grinder to be able to do that. But if you ever see either one of these on your tool, that is half the reason that you're going to get a catch, or you're going to have something bad that's going to happen while you're turning. Ah. Not that low? Sorry. All right, let me finish cleaning this up and then we'll put the next one on. Oh yeah, where's the other one? Okay, so this was the other one I was going to show you guys. So how many of you guys get to this stage and then you keep turning? Yeah, everybody does it. Everybody wants that hero cut. Everybody wants to make that cut from top to bottom and have it look absolutely phenomenal. It takes a long time to do that, you know. But once I've got the general shape, okay, and if I've got a piece of wood that's given me a lot of trouble, that's what scrapers are for, okay? And I try to say this to people all the time, okay? When you make something, after you've sanded it, after you've put finish on it, nobody is going to ask, "Well, did you make a great final cut on that? Did you really start sanding at 220 grit?" Only other wood turners or woodworkers are going to ask you these questions, okay? Generally, your customer is never going to ask you that, okay? So I am a fan of using scrapers, whether they be conventional scrapers or negative rake scrapers, to be able to clean up my surface or clean up some of my shapes if need be, okay? Now, you guys ever seen one of these? Yeah, spear point scraper, okay? This is one of the greatest things I took away from Mike Mahoney's demo, okay? When he was like, "Well, yeah," he's like, "it's close enough. Now we're going to grab the scraper and we're going to clean this thing up." And I'm like, that was worth the price of admission. Like, that's why we come to demos, is to pick up things like that. So I'm going to just use it up here up top, which is why I left this kind of rough so you guys could see, okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to lay the tool flat. I'm going to engage the wing. I'm going to slightly roll it towards the cut, okay? I don't want to leave it dead flat. I don't want it to be too aggressive. I want to roll it in, and I'm going to use this burr right here on the inside just to clean up and take out these little bits of tool mark right here.
People, we need a camera.
Need more cameras? Uh-oh. All right, so this was really nice. I was able to get all the way to here. Okay. But I ran into the headstock. Okay. So these are some of the things that you got to kind of watch out for. So to finish up, we'll use the bowl gouge as a scraper now. See, this is why it's nice to know how to do different things with different tools. So on this one, you really can't. If I were to try to take the tool here, I can't really get it. Well, I could kind of get it into that beginning. Let's try it. I didn't think I had enough space.
Oh, there is. I guess I'll have to find something else to use the bowl gouge as a scraper for. I'm sure I could.
I mean, my opinion has changed over the years. When I first learned how to wood turn, I learned from a lot of old guys who, said that you don't use scrapers. And then I met the old guys who were like, wait, that's all we used back in the day were scrapers. Like, why are we knocking that now? So and people talk about carbide and things like that. I was like, there are places where carbide comes in handy. When I'm turning a piece of resin, that's almost exclusively what I'm going to use. Like, I don't even try to pick up a gouge most of the time. Gets real grabby. It can destroy pieces of resin. What is it? The CI3 from Easy Wood, their negative rake tool is got to be one of the best things that has ever come out for a piece of resin. Like, I haven't seen that one yet. All right, so I'm going to just show you how I clean this end up real quick, and then we'll swap over. So, as Brian brought up earlier, this isn't dead flat, okay? And I want to make sure that both of my ends are flat, if not even concaved in just the littlest bit. Now, not real hard. We don't want to have a gap there where our glue can't get into, but we want to make sure that our outside feature fits nice onto the top or the bottom. So we have to make sure that this is flat.
All right. That was a little bit more than I wanted.
But I needed to get a cleaner cut there. So, any questions on the stem? No? All right. I cleaned up the top. I'm not sure I understand the question. One more time. When I clean up this cut? Oh, okay. You would think I was cleaning up the tenon? Nope. As a matter of fact, when I make these, I try not to cut on the tenon. Okay. I actually like to hold the beating and parting tool as a scraper when I'm doing this. Okay. Because I actually want to open up the grain a little bit more. Okay. When we make a cut, we seal that grain. We want a nice cut. We want to not have any tear out or anything. If you've ever noticed, Finish and glue don't really like to go into a cut. Like if you've ever seen somebody hit a piece of hit a board with a hand plane and then they drop water on it, and you'll notice that the water just beads up on it because you've sealed that grain by making such a nice cut. Well, when I want to glue something together, I want to do the exact opposite. I want to have that grain open. So that's why I will use the tool as a scraper right across my tenon here so that I know when I put glue on here, it's going to soak into that wood. But yeah, right here on the end grain of what I just cut, I want to make that as clean as possible. I would never leave it like this. Like this has a bunch of tear out from using the scraper where I don't want that. I want to be able to seal that up, but the tenon itself, yeah, I want to have a little bit of hair or a little bit of torn grain on it. All right. Now, we'll start with the base here since it's a little bit smaller and quicker. Got bar. Damn, 40 minutes? Man, who's been talking? I know. All right, so I'm not going to get both of them done, but the concept is exactly the same here. All right. So, how many of you guys use jam chucks? Yeah. If you don't use them, you should start. They are wonderful. There are so many cool things that you can do with jam chucks. The condensed foam, I just buy it off of Amazon. Matter of fact, I brought the package. It's right here. You get like 8 or 10 squares adhesive. I also make, because I make a lot of things, I make balance boards. So I use this condensed for this yeah, no, it's not what? Closed cell foam. That's what it is. Closed cell foam. I use this on the rollers and on the board so that when you stand on it, it gives you something sticky to like stick to. But they make great jam chucks because you can jam a piece up against it and they're just a littlest bit sticky. So yeah, but if you haven't made any jam chucks, look into it. They're really awesome. I use them for all sorts of projects. These do have adhesive on it. Yep. All right, so because somebody keeps talking, we're not going to have time to do both the top and bottom, but the concept is exactly the same. Yeah, I believe this is the 1/8 inch stuff. And they make it in all different sizes. I think the thickest I've seen is even up to 1 inch. I haven't found a use for anything that thick yet. But yeah, I want to say the thinnest is down to like a 1/16 of an inch. The thickest they make is almost 1 inch. All right. I did. Come on, only a wood turner would use a scrap of curly maple to make a jam chuck. I forget who I was showing it to up at the shop, and they're like, "Rope, that's curly maple." I was like, "Yeah, I know. I got like 6 more boards over here, so if you want some of it, you know." All right. So also, when I put this on, one of my favorite tools is a steb center. So you saw me turning with one right here. Okay. They're called safety drives or steb center or multi-tooth drive. I love these things. I use them for almost every project that I turn with. To me, they are far superior to a 4-prong drive that you would have to actually smash into the wood to get any bite on them. I've recently found the revolving center one, and I use it a lot, but for this particular project, I really like it because my Forstner bit leaves a pretty good dimple down in the bottom, okay, which this particular cone fits perfect in, okay. Plus, by being the 1 inch steb on this one, I have plenty of bite on the backside. So I know that when I'm putting pressure into my jam chuck, that it's not going to slip on me at all. Now, not to say that this is completely necessary for this, But as you start to collect tools, you try to find ways in which to use them for every project. But this was a purchase that I was really happy that I made and I have used a lot. So the multi-tooth drive and multi-tooth live centers are really good to have. All right, that right on there. Slide that up and we're centered. Of my jam chuck? No. So if you see it, this is still straight off of the saw. You guys can hand this one around if you want. I take it right off the saw cut. So, I mean, if it was in really bad shape, I might sand it and clean it up. But no, because after I get done shaping the bottom of it, I'm going to flip it around and put it on the chuck if I can get that far, if we can get that far. All right, so first thing I'm going to do here is just true this up. Now, let's make sure we turn this down. Oh, see, that's why you check it. Hey, hey, we've all done it. Come on. All right, so let's true this up real quick. Who's starting again? No. So when we're making this cut, okay, left hand is pulling down into the tool rest. Right hand is back. I've got the gouge right up against my hip. You'll notice when I did this, it was the lathe dance. So we'll take one more cut so you can see.
Flute's closed. Score with the nose. Open that flute up. Drop the handle down. Keep the bevel rubbing. Slowly shift your weight. I'm going from my left foot to my right foot.
All right. So now let's get rid of some of this material. All right. All right. So what we're going to do now, we'll use this one for an example. So basically we've got the blank in this orientation, okay? We're going to start to remove this and make this curve coming up, okay? I'm going to get rid of about 2/3 of this before I'm going to measure and use my calipers to see where I want my flat to be on here, okay? Because I need to make sure that I have my flat on my top and bottom can register on my flat on my top and bottom here.
So on cuts like this, it's nice to be able to turn with both hands.
Okay, because if I was trying to cut like this as a pull cut, all I'm doing is blowing all those shavings right at me. Okay, but by being able to switch up, get the gouge in my left hand, use my left hip, now I'm shooting all the shavings over my shoulder over here, but I'm not having to eat them. I think there was several of us who learned that from Glenn Lucas. There is no such thing. Uvex Bionic. Yep. It almost feels weird to me now to ever try and turn without a face shield on. Every once in a while, I try and even do like a small project, and it just doesn't feel comfortable to me. And I used to say this a lot at the college. Wearing a face shield and having something can go wrong can be the difference between having to go to the hospital or just being able to continue turning. I've had some pretty big bark inclusions, different pieces of wood that have just bounced right off of this thing, and I just keep going. So a little bit, depending on what you're doing. But for the most part, no, they kind of stay out of it. And it has a couple different settings. You can set it so that it comes down a little bit lower and get right up against your chest. At some point, I would like to be able to invest in one of the full air shield helmets. But yeah, I don't make enough money to do that yet. So someday. Man, that's a nicer piece than I thought. All right, so on these, the bigger piece is going to be the top, the smaller piece is going to be the bottom. So I've also got a set of dividers here. I really like dividers too when I'm setting stuff up. So I want to get my flat to be the same diameter as what the bottom of my piece is. So I'm going to use these dividers to transfer what my diameter is here to the piece on the bottom. Okay. Now, is there anybody here that hasn't used dividers before? No? Okay. So one thing that you want to know about using dividers on the lathe, okay, is you do want these nice sharp points, okay, because we're going to put a little reference line in here. One thing you also want to know is don't ever let the back wing touch the piece, okay? I'm going to have the front wing right here on the tool rest, okay? But I'm always going to have this back wing about a half an inch off as I'm creating this. If this comes into it, they're going right up and over your shoulder. Ask me how I know that. Or around your fingers, yeah. Yeah. So we're just going to use this so that we can put a little reference line in here. This is going to be the bottom. All right, so that's just a little out, but that's good reference for us. All right, so now I'm going to finish this curve, but only right here to the line.
Okay, now and this is exactly what I do on the top also. So the process is the same for the base and for the top of the table. Ooh, that's a pretty nice piece. Damn, okay. At least we're gonna make a lot of shavings. Always listen to the wood. So that was the wood telling me that that drive slipped a little bit.
All right, so up till now, we've been making all these cuts in the bowl orientation. Okay, we always want to cut uphill when we're making a bowl from the base up to the top. Think about this just as a bowl blank. But now what's happening is I can't get my gouge in here to actually finish this last cut. Okay, so I'm actually going to take a cut backwards and we're going to come downhill. Now, you're going to see that as much as we tell you that this isn't the proper way, it can be done. Oh yeah. As a matter of fact, you can see it right here. Okay. But it was the only way I could actually get to that line to be able to make this cut. All right. So that's how we do all the shaping for both these. Got 10 more? What? 20. Oh, well, we got a little more time. Then let me clean this up real quick. 22, 24. Hut, hut, hut. Oh. All right, so yeah, I'm going to clean this up real quick with a shear cut here. So shear cut is when I'm going to have the flute closed. I'm going to be using the burr on the inside of this bottom wing. Okay, you're going to see I'm going to drop this handle down at about 45 degrees. I'm going to start here at the bottom, work my way up to the larger diameter just to clean up any of that tear out. Okay.
But get this handle out of the way. There we go. So
the long shaving I made off the cut, off of a shear cut. These are the little shavings that you should be able to get off a shear cut. These are shavings. They're not just dust. They're actual shavings that come off.
So the shear cut is also a great way
to clean up any high point that you have while you've been cutting. Okay. Sometimes rubbing that bevel and making that cut all the way through isn't so easy. You've got little high spots or tool marks, things like that.
Why do you do that?
I couldn't make a cut because the tailstock got in the way as I was coming in here. You got to remember, this is just on the faceplate. I can't get rid of my tailstock to make a full push cut coming all the way through. To remove the material, it doesn't remove material, or well, it doesn't remove a lot of material. I mean, we would be here till midnight if I was shaping with that shear cut. Yeah, it's just a refining cut. It's only used to like clean up little bits of tool mark or get any tear out of it. You know. All right. So we'll do this real quick. So everybody's got one of these, right? Oh, these things are awesome. They come in super handy. Okay. With a 5-inch sanding pad. Okay. I know that in wood turning, we use a lot of 2, 3-inch sanding pads on bowls, things like that. Anytime that I've got something larger like this, and I really want to get that material out of the way, I use a 5-inch pad on a drill. Okay. Now, one of the keys to sanding is that you don't go faster than the material or the sandpaper can handle. Okay. I also have learned that by doing my first rotation of sanding in reverse, it has cut my sanding time down in half. So every time I switch grits, I go in reverse first, then I come back and forward. Okay. Because if you're to put your hand on here and run this in the direction we've been cutting, it doesn't feel too bad. If you put your hand up here and you run it backwards, it's like petting a cat backwards. Okay. You can feel every one of those hairs that's standing up because as we were cutting here, we got most of them, but there are some that we missed, but we can feel it by going in reverse like this. Okay. So put that in reverse. Now I haven't switched my speed. This is still the same exact speed that I was cutting at. Okay. Yeah, a little more right there. But sanding shouldn't take you a long time. Okay. Sanding should be pretty quick if you're doing it efficiently. Come back in this direction. Well, there we go. I do. So when the piece is coming towards me, okay, I always make sure that the drill is going in the opposite direction that the piece is going. So when I put it in reverse and I go this way, I'll switch it so that my sandpaper is going against it. If not, I'm just chasing the wood as it's going. So now I know that I'm actually going to be removing and knocking down those hairs. And I got one little section where my grain is squirrely right here. But other than that, that's pretty good. I know, it's about time to go. We all need a cup of coffee. But any questions, comments, concerns? I'm sorry I wasn't able to get through both parts. I didn't realize. I assemble and then I put finish on. Mostly because when I'm gluing up, if I get any squeeze out or anything like that, I don't like to use a wet cloth and clean it up. You hear a lot of guys do that. I let the squeeze out come out. I let it harden. Then I hit it with a chisel so that I can actually break it off. If you've ever seen any kind of blotchy finishes on stuff, it's generally because somebody tried to wipe glue off, and instead of cleaning it off, they actually just smeared glue more into the wood. So yeah, I will glue it up. I will let it sit for 24 hours. I'll come back with the chisel. I will clean up any of the glue lines or anything like that. And then I finish it. I'm a big fan of wipe-on polyurethane. Works well. I'm probably going to need to find something else. I didn't notice actually until I put this into the truck that there is a ring right here from where somebody put a hot cup of tea on there. And I had never used polyurethane on a furniture project before. I'd always just used them on bowls and vessels and things like that. So I'm going to be experimenting with some finishes to see what I can get that will. What? I could do that. Although, as I already mentioned, I have a 7-year-old boy, and a coaster would just be a small frisbee flying through my house. That's what I've been doing. I just keep putting it right back in that same spot, covering it up, you know. It's kind of like, you know, the mark on the kitchen table. You always put the salad bowl over the same spot right there, you know. But I am going to experiment with some finishes to see what I can find that's a little harder and better for that. See, and I always loved it. And this one has 5 on there. So I just don't know if the cup was just too warm or if something happened. Because yeah, I put at least 5 coats, maybe 6 on there. And I figured it should have had enough of a barrier. Yeah. Yeah. Oh.
So how did you hold it to turn the top?
I did the top the same exact way, and that was the last thing I was going to show you real quick too. So we've got this all sanded. We're all good to go. Oh, well then let's. There we go. Like I said, whoever's got that hamster. All right, so now this is our base, okay? Base is going to come right into it. Come on. Just like that, okay? But now we have to clean up the bottom. So basically, my drill hole has just become my mortise. 1 inch. Yep. And that's kind of woodworker's choice. I go with 1 inch just because I found that's plenty of glue surface to be able to hold it together. Doing some research online, I actually found a few gentlemen that were going significantly shallower. There was one guy who was only drilling 1/4 of an inch. I didn't think that that was enough for me, but I thought 1 inch was enough glue joint in there to hold this together. All right, so since this is the bottom, just like a bowl, we are going to do a little undercut.
And forward.
All right. And when you're doing the base, you got to remember, you got to have a little bit of that undercut. Okay. Because if we leave this dead flat, as the seasons change, the wood swells and shrinks. Sometimes your table is going to sit flat. Sometimes it's going to weeble wobble. Okay. And we don't really want a weeble wobble table. Nope. I go straight to the rim. Yep. Now, not to say that you couldn't, but anytime that you leave a flat like that, you have more risk of it being able to move. I like to come all the way out to the end, and then when I sand it, I will actually round it over just a little bit so that it doesn't have that sharp edge. I don't want it to break or anything like that, so I'll just sand a little bit of round over on it.
That wood, some kind of maple.
Yep, it's all maple.
Maple is by far my favorite wood to work with. And someday I will move somewhere that has a lot of big leaf maple burl. All right.
So now, we get that to sit nice and flat, as long as it has that undercut on there. So now even when the seasons swell and shrink, the wood swells and shrinks with the seasons, it will always sit flat on the floor. Yeah. Look at the curl in that. About 1/8 of an inch. Yeah, it's just enough so that the outside of the foot sits flat and that the inside, I've never seen one swell more than 1/8 of an inch. If it did, that'd be a lot of moisture. It would probably ruin the table. Yeah. I put it on the mortise and tenon, intending that it's going to swell or that it's going to squeeze out onto that shoulder. Yeah. Only because we all know that it's the long grain that really has the most glue surface and the most structure to it. This is just end grain, but it always gets a little bit on it, you know. But I try to minimize as much coming out onto the table as I can, but onto the shoulder, it does get a little bit. Only when I'm swimming out in the cold. No, see, that's why I use dried wood. So there isn't as much swelling and shrinkage. I mean, there is a little bit of room in there to allow it to happen, but no, once it's dry and sealed, it shouldn't really have that much movement. Cool. So any other questions?
Why is it I'm clean the fit of the bottom of the shoulder when it's gonna get glued to that hot surface?
Mostly because I just want the end grain to seal up. Yeah, like that's why I just make sure that it's a clean cut. Because like Marty was saying, if it does swell or shrink, it's always going to happen on that end grain. So by having a nice clean cut right there, it seals those fibers. Yeah. Yep. Yep. These were local Denver silver maples that came down.
Maybe write down either the name and address of where your lumberyard is.
Oh yeah.
No.
No? Oh, okay. No, I can't. I've been told that it's a secret, and no, I can write the address down. It's 1195 South Pierce Street in Lakewood. Down lower? There is a phone number now. I can't remember what it is though. Right now I'm there Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 8:30 to 3:30.